Welcome back to the ranch. My name is Michael. Today we're going to be rebuilding a carburetor off of a Kohler 161 or 181. This specific motor came off of this 1960s Cub Cadet 71, but process is relatively similar to any small engine out there. Lawnmower, snowblower, compressor, they're pretty much a one-for-one process. So we'll get into it and see if we can rebuild this one. Okay, so like I mentioned, I'm rebuilding this carburetor for this Cub Cadet here, International Cub Cadet. It came off of this motor that I bought for parts. Same era, 1960s. This is a 161 model, so is this one. I have this running right now off of an eBay $12 carburetor, so it's not the best as far as build quality. So the tractor runs fine, well enough, but I had this parts motor for this air cleaner anyway, so I figured I'd pull off this carburetor and rebuild it for this thing. So if you want to watch that video where I set up the plow and kind of tinker on this motor a bit, I will put that in the info box, I believe, on your right, my left, up here.
Any-hooser.
This carb has been soaking in vinegar, dish soap, boiling water, you name it, for the last 4 days. It is frozen solid, and by frozen I don't mean ice frozen, I mean just rust and old fuel. It's in bad shape. So half the reason why I want to rebuild this is just basically to challenge myself. I mean, it is in rough shape. I have it kind of halfway taken apart. It's bad. So we're gonna see if I can even get this thing freed up and rebuild it from there. Like I mentioned, it's a pretty simple mechanism. If you don't know much about carburetors, this is a good place to start. And with that being said, if you want to understand a little bit more about how they work, a guy on YouTube, Smarter Every Day, I think his channel is Smarter Every Day. I'll have it up here. But he does a really good informational video on carburetors, just small engine carburetor. He makes a 3D printed clear version so you could see how everything works. So if you have an interest in that, go ahead and check that video out. But onward with this one. We're going to tear it open. It's already open. We're going to get into it, clean it up, and I'll explain a little bit as I'm going. So, like I said, I've been soaking this thing in vinegar, dish soap, boiling water. You could put them in an ultrasonic cleaner if you have one. My wife would probably get pretty upset with me if I did that because that's for her rings. But anyway, it's still not free. I mean, this thing is really frozen up. But we're gonna take everything out here. Good news is my float is floating. I wasn't expecting that old brass float. These tend to leak air, you know, a little crack in them or something. And obviously this one's pretty beat up, pretty bent up and stuff. So I would have been not surprised, we'll say, if it was leaking. And the problem with that is the float is meant to float, and if it has leaks in it, then it'll sink and it won't do its job. So that's that. Got our jets, our bowl sitting in here. Hopefully those will clean up. And then I soaked this gasket down because it was so brittle. I can make another one of these out of gasket material, but I'm interested to see if I can get away with not putting any parts on this thing, see if that'll work. So that is that. All right, so the way that this works, I'm going to explain this in a very simple manner. I mean, my understanding of most mechanical things, anything that has to do with motors or anything like that, is a very grade school level way of understanding things. So that's how I'm going to explain it. Not everything's going to be technically correct. This video is really for an intro level understanding. So anyway, with that being said, this is your main body, your carburetor body. Okay, in this body, we're going to start with the bowl. So you flip it upside down, and this is where your bowl is. Okay, so this is actually, when it's installed, it's sitting like this. Inside this bowl is a float and a needle. Okay, that needle sits in this hole here, float sits on top of it, and how this works is your bowl fills up with fuel from your gas tank. Okay, the gas tank starts filling up the bowl, and it's sitting right side up like this, and your float's hanging down. Okay, you start filling up with fuel and your float starts coming up. Okay, so it's empty, start filling up with fuel, and your float starts coming up. When it's seated, that means that needle is basically seating inside of this hole, and it stops fuel from coming in. Okay, so when your bowl is full of fuel, you seat your needle, and that needle stops the fuel from coming in. Now, inside this bowl, when you have fuel sitting inside of it, the reason you need compression in a motor is because it's going to suck the fuel into the motor. Okay, so you have the fuel that sits down in the bowl, and then you have your main jet that sits on top of your carburetor body. Oh, this thing is gummy. Okay, and during your 4 strokes, okay, it's going to suck fuel into the carburetor body through this jet. Okay, this is what allows the fuel through. All right, and that fuel is going to come up, it's going to get sucked into the motor, and it's going to get sparked by your spark plug. Okay, it's going to get fired off by your spark plug. So that's your main jet, and then you have another needle here. This is your idle mixture screw. This goes on the side here, and that screw is going to control the mixture of your air versus fuel. So the more you let it out, the more fuel that comes through. The more you push it in, the less fuel that comes through. And basically, you got to find a good balance, a sweet spot, if you will, of air and fuel. So you're not too rich or too lean. Too rich would be too much fuel, too lean would be too little fuel or too much air. In essence, that's it. That's how simple these are. When you start getting into something like a Stromberg carb on the Jag here, or a Holley double pumper on the Mercury, they get a lot more intricate and a lot more complicated, but this is a good place to start the understanding of how a carburetor works, because all a carburetor is just a few needles and a few bolts. You take it apart, you clean them up, make sure all your holes are free of any debris or anything, and put it back together, and you're good to go. Every carburetor out there also has a standard setting with your screws, your main jet, your idle mixture jet, that basically, you know, you could just look up on forums and they'll say, hey, this main jet, if you twist it all the way in and you seat the jet, the standard setting is 2 turns out, and that's where it should be set to, give or take. You can go from there. So let's get into cleaning this thing. That was long-winded. Normally I would spray it down with Carb Clean and take something like a Brillo pad and shine up the outside. With this one, I'm not really emotionally attached to this whole thing. This whole motor was $30 on Facebook Marketplace, so I'm gonna take a wire brush and scrub this thing down real quick, get it nice and clean, and then we'll focus on the internals. Alright, so we'll start with a little Carb Clean. You have to use Carb Cleaner. You can't use Brake Clean. It'll damage your parts, gaskets, stuff like that. Just give her a spray down and then take the wire brush to her. Alright, it's starting to look a little better, huh? Just a little wire brush and carb cleaner and looking a lot better. So now, obviously cleaning up the outside doesn't do much for you, other than make it look decent. But next goal is to get these levers freed up. This is your choke that cuts off. That's what this little flapper is here for, is for opening and closing your choke. And this one on this side is your throttle. So these things are locked up. So I gotta see if I can, I'm gonna try heating them up, putting some heat to them, and then spraying them down real quick with some PB Blaster, and hopefully that'll do the trick. I should add, when you're working with carb clean, you should be wearing gloves, safety glasses. I got safety glasses on, but no gloves.
Shake hands for danger.
And that's bad on me. But with this, I am soaking this down in some PB Blaster right now, and then we're gonna hit it with a little butane torch, nothing special. But for the time being, I'm gonna let this soak for a little bit and move on to cleaning up the jets. A good way to do this is just to take a little piece of wire and see all these little holes. None of those can be clogged up. So compressed air, carb clean, toothbrush, pieces of wire, anything that you can fit in there without damaging them. I mean, you don't want to open them up any further than they are, because these are all, set to a specific opening diameter. So take a little piece of wire, stick it through all the holes, and just make sure that there's nothing clogging them up. Okay, now a little carb clean and a little bit of compressed air. And that is all clean. Alright, I'll work on this float a little bit. This thing is pretty gummed up. So I really don't want to use this because I don't want to ruin this float, but I'm just going to real lightly, just give it a little scrape. Okay, so now that's better. Now you can see that little tab there. See that thing? That's how you set your float. Set the height of the float. You can either bend that up or down. That's how you raise or lower that. Okay. I'm gonna take this and heat it up. See if we can break these loose, because that's the make or break here. If I can't get these broken loose, then all this work will be for naught. So we'll see. Should definitely have gloves on for this one. So, tip on heating up anything to break it free from rust or anything like that. Heat and then a quick cool off with a penetrating lubricant. So what I'm going to do is heat this up nice and good, not too much, I don't want to break anything. And then we'll take our PB Blaster and give it a soak. And we'll see. getting hot. I need gloves. In my pocket. Keeping my pockets nice and safe, as my dad used to say. Alright, I'm gonna keep working on this. Oh, this one's breaking loose. Oh yeah, that's going now. Nice.
Nice.
Cool. Alright. One down, one to go. I didn't get it on camera. This thing was giving me fits, but just got it real hot. Took it over to the vise, crimped this part of the bracket here in the vise and just kind of slowly turned in and out. Finally got it cracked loose. So we are in business. All right, now that that's wrapped up, we're gonna finish cleaning this thing up. Basically, all you need to know is you want all of your orifices, all your holes to be free of any debris, which I mentioned before. But a good way to do that is just, you know, stick your tube in each hole and give it a spray. So this is where your fuel line comes in, and this is where your needle seats. So you want to see if that's going to be spraying through there. Which it is, slowly. Maybe a little bit of compressed air. Oh yeah. Got our main jet. Should be coming through the top. Yep, you see that? That one's free. Throw some compressed air through that. And then we got our idle mixture screw. That should be coming through in here. Yep, you can see that. Alright. Pressed air through that. Alright, with that, we're going to put this thing back together. We should be good to go. I'm going to throw it on this thing and see if we can get it running. Needle first. Drop that in there. Grab your float. I'm hoping this thing was already set right, but I will double check it once it's on. So you want that tab facing down because that's what's going to stop it. Okay. Slip that in there. Main jet. Slip it in there, screw it in. And you'll feel it, it'll seat, and you don't want to over compress it because you can damage the needle. I mean, these are really, really delicate brass parts, so just seat it, and you're going to take it and turn it out. The main jet is backing out 2 full turns. It's a half, 1, half, 2. Idle mixture screw. Screw it all the way in. seated. Half, 1 and a half. So that one's 1.5 turns.
What sort of work do you do? I'm an airline pilot.
And that is it. That is a rebuilt carb. Everything's functioning, everything's clean, so this should work. I'm gonna take a second and take my other carb off, and then we'll do a little swap. I gotta screw in this fuel fitting here, and I'm just gonna rob that from my other one, and then we'll hook it up and see if it runs. Fun fact, this screwdriver, this cheap little screwdriver, actually came in a toy set. I don't know, I've actually never even seen this before. It says Handy Andy. Okay, my parents got this for me when I was a kid, like toddler, and I have used this toy screwdriver, I mean, in my, how long have I been working on cars? Since I was 15, 16, so do the math, carry the 2, 13 years, something like that. So I don't know what it is about this little screwdriver, but it's so handy because it's so small and dainty. But I love this thing. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Alright, that's about it. We'll turn the fuel on, twist the key, and see if she fires up. Alright, there's the fuel. Let that bowl fill up. Found my first leak. And it's from this gasket right here on the bottom of the bowl. All right, now let's twist the key. Well, there you have it. We went from a $30 marketplace motor to robbing parts and putting it on our International Cub Cadet, and she runs like a champ. I don't have a lot of, good or bad things to say about these eBay carbs. It's just I always feel better when I have original parts that are meant to be on something. So next time it snows, we'll test out that plow on the front. I've been itching to try that thing out, but there you have it. I mean, it's a relatively simple process to clean up those carbs. I mean, even when you have all the odds against you and the thing is totally locked up, there's still a possibility you can get some life left out of that thing. So don't let carburetors scare you. They're all pretty simple. You know, as the bigger they get, the more components they have. But at the very, very basic end of it, it's just it's a pretty simple mechanism. So with that, we will call that one a wrap and move on to the next project. Probably something a little more full size. I really got to get this truck done over here, so maybe we'll move on to leaf springs. So I'll keep you posted on when that comes out. Otherwise, if you did find useful information in this video, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It really helped me out. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.